Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session on the inclusion of people with disabilities in the music industry. My name is Kamilė Čelutkaitė. I'm head of Creative Europe Desk Lithuania, and I'm going to be moderating this discussion. I'm very grateful to the MURMURS organizers for recognizing the importance of this topic. This session is interpreted from English to Lithuanian Sign Language by Justina Vertelkaitė. We'll have 3 10-minute presentations, followed by a discussion and your questions. So please listen attentively. You will be able to ask questions after the presentations. I will shortly introduce the topic. So people with disabilities still face major barriers in accessing music in any role, be it an audience member or an aspiring music creator. In Lithuania alone, 230,000 people officially have a sort of disability, which is 8.5% of the total population. It is a big portion of the market of audience often not reached and talent unexplored. This is why I would like to frame this discussion in a visionary statement. People with disabilities should be part of the music ecosystems. And I'm very excited to introduce our experts who will share their ways of making this vision a tangible reality through their work. Please welcome Dominykas Vaitiekūnas, performing artist and head of the creative initiative Not What We Agreed.
Hello, everyone.
And Ronald Ligtenberg, founder of Possibilize and Reveland, who arrived here from the Netherlands.
Thank you for having me.
We'll also have via video recording, we'll have Finnish entrepreneur and deaf rapper Marko Vuoriheimo, known as Mark. So these are our speakers today, and I invite Ronald to start your presentation.
Yes, once more, thank you for having me. So far, the first 24 hours have been amazing, being here in Vilnius. Let me first share a bit more about myself and my organization. I started 23 years ago with an organization called Possibilize, in which we're turning a limitation into a jumping board for growth. And we do that by running a platform, the platform Possibilize, doing various projects like Sense City. That's where I started with 23 years ago, a music event for deaf people run by deaf people. Although half of the audience is also still hearing. We're using a lot of sensorial effects like food, taste sensations, but also scent, visuals, light effects, deaf performers, all to translate the emotion that is within the music. Another project is Reveland, in which I'm now checking with festivals like Glastonbury, Roskilde, and Ziget Festival, major festivals in Europe, how we can make accessibility more fun, how we can make it cool, sexy, and hip, even sexy. And more about that on Saturday morning if you'd like to hear about that. We do many other projects, but everything has a limitation as an inspiration. Now, what does that mean? So I traveled around the world, and I've visited many cultural institutions all over the world, and everywhere I come, nobody starts to smile when I talk about accessibility. You might recognize that in your own experience, but generally it's being considered as a problem. And I understand that. What we usually think is that it costs money, takes time, requires effort. We don't know exactly how to do it. And there's only a small benefit, like not that many visitors, but we feel a moral obligation and sometimes a financial necessity depending on the funders who demand your accessibility. And what usually happens if accessibility is considered as a problem, we're looking for a checklist. Well, then we think, okay, let's develop a checklist. So we made a checklist using a few elements and a few focus groups. First of all, when you say accessibility, people often think of the wheelchair ramp or a sign language interpreter, but accessibility is so much more than that. So what is it that we're talking about? It's about experience. So what is happening on stage? Is it for people with a limitation? Are you able to experience what is happening on stage? It is about reliability. Is the information on your website, does it give clear information about whether it is accessible, whether there is a toilet for a wheelchair user, for example? Is it understandable? Like, can you, having a mental limitation, understand where the toilets are or where you get to buy your ticket? It's about treatment. In other words, how is the entire crew, the team, treating people with a limitation? Like, you can have done everything for blind people, but if the security doesn't let in the guidance dog, all your efforts have been for nothing. It's about reachable. Can you get there? Usable. Like, for example, being in a wheelchair, are you able to order drinks or is the bar way too high? Who is paying for the interpreter? And in the end, I think it all comes down with, are you in mind with policy? Now, you can focus on various groups. This is arbitrary. You can focus on many more groups, like intellectual limitation, like that could be syndrome of Down, that could be autism, that could be high sensitive. But let's start with these 4 groups, and if you then combine that, you get a model, we call it the accessibility matrix, that has all the different elements and all the different focus groups. And usually when I show this matrix, people get a bit disencouraged. They're like, 28, I wanted to make my entire event accessible for everyone. And now they see that I have 28 different cells and actually even more cells to work on. Well, let this just be supporting for you to see where can I actually start? What's the low-hanging fruit? What are the first steps that I can take? Now, we've been talking about this matrix for quite some years now, and we think we're now in the level, how am I doing time-wise, by the way? Because you said be very strict. 6 minutes, oh, sit down. I think we're now reaching the stage of accessibility 2.0, where 1.0 is doing the checklist, following what other people are telling you to do. But what it actually starts with is a sense of belonging. Like, what people with limitation really want is to be part of the group. They want to feel welcome. They want to feel at home. So that requires you paying attention to what actually do you need? What do you want? Rather than following that checklist, just get in conversation. And at the same time, I'm aware for a lot of festival organizers and music venue owners, that is also the difficult part, because where are they? How do you get in touch? Who do you to reach? But really, as a starting point, you should focus on the sense of belonging, according to my experience. Second step would be creative accessibility. I will share more about that in a moment. And the third one is an integral strategy. Now, I said more about sense of belonging, so let me explain more what I mean with creative accessibility. Accessibility in such a way that it provides added value for several target groups. I think the best example I can give is this one. So what often happens with accessibility and accessibility measures is that it's being added at the very, very last moment. So a venue has been built or a festival area has been built up, and then it's like, oh, there was something like accessibility. What can we add? So here you see an elevator, escalator, only to be used by wheelchair users. At that point, I was with my son in a baby ramp, and I did not really feel invited to use it. I asked somebody at the desk how much this thing has been. She estimated this at 20,000 euro. Now, you can spend 20,000 euro on this elevator. What you also can do is give an artist 20,000 euro, designing a ramp that you really that can be used by everybody. Can be used by skaters, for male with the carriages, It can be used by parents with baby ramps, and it can also be used by wheelchair users. So here you have a solution that serves multiple purposes, because it will never be cost effective, never say never, but it's going to be much more difficult to make it cost effective if you design solutions that only are targeted for a very small group, whereas this can be a solution that is cheaper, but you have to start at the beginning of the whole process with it. Time, can you give me notice in 2 minutes? I wanted to share one more thing. One of the projects that we've been doing is that we've been working with bands who are designing their show, and we give them the challenge to make it immersive and inclusive. And this band called Cut Underscore designed a show focusing on people with mental limitations, so they wanted to make it more immersive and engaging. What they did is they built a set in 3 parts, where the first part was about awakening and opening up. And you can see the singer here having a costume with an oyster, and she would start on the ground and slowly opening up, literally opening up. And the second part was about connection. And she would walk into the audience. You can see the cables. I'm gonna walk around. You can see the cables on her dress, and she would be handing out these cables to the audience, literally making a connection, and then walk around, taking people out of their safe environment and leave them at a different spot while still being connected. And as you can see, she would still be singing. And then the third part would be about reflection, and she was literally having these reflecting elements on her outfit. She would also hand them out in the audience, and she would challenge the audience to kind of battle with these shells, and she would with a big beamer, she would have an array of light into the audience. The thing I'd like to show with this is that this show, she's also performing, even though there may not be people with limitation in the audience. But this elevated their artistic level much more. So she took it as a challenge to create something that has a deeper artistic level. And that happens if you take inclusion or accessibility from the start. Which I think, there's actually one more step to keep in mind. I think it's 2026 by now. We can't come up anymore with, hey, I meant it well. Because while working on accessibility, you'll make many, many mistakes. I can say from my own experience, I made many, many mistakes. And that's why I'm sitting here, so-called being an expert. Well, I'm an expert on making mistakes. But you keep on learning from each mistake, and therefore you improve your accessibility. So if you are just starting, the worst thing you can do is do nothing. But by 2026, you also cannot say anymore, but I meant it well and now I gave up on it. And having said that, I'd like to summarize what I'm mostly about, and that would be actually, let me go back, I might sit in front of it. So I haven't said much about the strategy yet, so if you start the strategy, start with a mission. I think it should start from the top of the organization. Then take time to work on your HR. So make sure you have people with limitation in your organization, or at least have access to communities of people with limitation. Then think about your program. Is it really that interesting for people with limitation? That's an arguable question. Happy to share more about that. Then make sure people know about it. Make sure the information on your website is. And only as the last part, even though it says number 3 here, only as the last part, you should think about the productional facilities you should work on. Although I'm aware that usually people start thinking about the production side. But I think we'll have a very good example in a moment coming up with Dominykas, sharing what beautiful things will happen if you start from the bottom, from the very first core, with accessible and inclusion thoughts behind it. How was that? Okay, thank you. You've been generous.
I mean, It was a fantastic transition, I think, to the Dominykas presentation. So I think we can spare no time and go directly to your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ronald.
So, thank you, Ronald. I'm really sad because I met you just today. I think if I had met you 6 years ago, my life probably would have been much more easier because I had to find out many things myself. So let me tell you today, I'm here, my 10 minutes started to represent you what we have done together with deaf community members in Lithuania. So just a simple, I can talk about this like for ages, for 100 years if you let me, but please stop when it's time. Today I would like to represent an example what we've done with deaf community in Lithuania, and it's a music album, or we call it audiovisual. Officially, we call it audiovisual music collection. And why it's not a simple music album, I will explain you in a minute. Not what we agreed is a title of our project in English, translated, but it's originally in Lithuanian. It's Mes taip nesitariam. And the funny thing, when I started this project and titled the project, I started to write emails. In title, I put not what we agreed as a project name, and I was really surprised because people were shocked, or even they said that the beginning of to connect it was quite difficult.
Me included.
You
I was a
included.
bit shocked. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So, what is an audiovisual music collection, and why we're titling the music album like this? It's an extended format music album. Usually when we talk about music albums, we talk about songs, which is in the music album, released in many formats. But here we have a music album which is co-created together with deaf community and co-created approximately half of the material firstly was created in sign language, then translated to Lithuanian spoken language, and sometimes I'm just joking that it's an adaptation for hearing people. We adapted music album for hearing people, but in general it's a music album for everyone who speaks spoken language or speaks sign language. And I will tell later why we're not talking about disabilities here, because when we first started from the disability point of view or perspective, we failed a lot in our creative process. So this music album is released physically and digitally a week ago. And here I have an example. This is a physical example. Fresh and beautiful product. And it has two parts. So both digitally and physically, we have two formats. And we pick I don't know the English word about Reinale. Iron, probably. It's iris, sorry. Iris and I, which connects two parts. One part is sign language, and another part is sound and sound experience, which is important for hearing people. So in this part of sound, we have, could you help me? We have a beautiful vinyl, like a music format, which is mastered for vinyl players, and on this side we have a book, which is a part of the visual part. Oh, okay. This is we don't have video, so sorry. And here we have a I'm demonstrating the creative pieces, which is created in sign language and filmed and released in audiovisual format. And here we have lyrics. If we have lyrics, that means it's a song which is written in sign language and translated to spoken language. And if we don't have lyrics, that means we have authentic genres of deaf community. It's sign language poetry, which is voice-overed and musically adapted or created together with musicians. And so we have 3 genres: visual vernacular genre, which is really specific genre for deaf community, then sign language poetry, and songs. So every person could scan like a code, and the code leads to open access to YouTube videos. And so this digital format is, let me put here. This digital format is accessible by everyone on the internet, and visual part and music part, and on other platforms as Spotify or Apple Music and etc. How much time I have? 4 minutes left. But I have to note that the initiative started from songwriting. I'm an actor, actually. I'm a stage person, a theater artist, but one of my ways to express myself was since I was very young, to write songs. So I started a song as a form of a connecting form, deaf community and hearing community, but we did this process not for music industry and not because we wanted to release an album. An album is just like a souvenir which left after 6 years of hard work. We concentrated, and happily it was really successful point of view. What you have said before about the beginning. The beginning was really important. So we concentrated on workshops. Then we did a theater performance, musical theater performance, where 14 deaf artists could independently synchronize their creative pieces with a live music band using some visuals on stage. We did that as a theater performance. It was really successful, immersive theater performance. We also added additional composition layers for the audience to have a vibrational experience. And then we decided to film, to record everything, and just to release music album, which is, as I know, the first in Lithuania, which is co-created and designed for mixed deaf and hearing audience, and I'm really, really proud of it. And now I would like to invite you to see the short video of Justina, who is here in the audience, how the sign language poetry piece is created and is a part of our album. So can we? Durys, rankena, šurmulys, šokis, muzika, ritmas, kojos dunksi, šokis, muzika, ritmas, kojos dunksi. Vaizdas mirga, mokytoja pakviečia ją. Įeina jaunuoliai, scena, žiūrovai, jos veidą apšviečia lempos,
linkteli, sprakteli, grupė ima šokti.
And one more applause for Justina. And one more example is a song. It's also short version. This is Gabija. Her sign name is Gabija. And you will see Arnas, our participants. It's a song of hard of hearing people.
Stop, žodis, 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 stop, gestas.
So, and here is a person actually which connects me and you because both of us are working with Sain Marko. Kamilė mentioned a deaf rapper from Finland, and Marko was our lecturer, and he held a couple of workshops here in Lithuania. So yeah, without a deaf person in the team, we would have never done what we actually did. And when people ask me, how do you understand deaf people and how you can communicate, sometimes I show this picture. And here is a QR code if you want to access our creative stuff on the internet. Also, let me invite you to the live music event, our presentation of our album. It's going to be next weekend, and now I'm timed out. So thank you for listening.
Wow. I was actually in the performance. I think it was not last year, but 2 years ago.
One and a half.
1.5, yeah. It was an amazing experience. I loved it so much. So if you ever have this opportunity to participate in it, I really invite you to do that. Thank you, Dominykas.
Thank you.
It was, again, a very smooth transition. I love how you guys transit from one presentation to another. Let's move to the video recording of the presentation of Marko Vuoriheimo, known as Sign Mark. It's gonna take a few seconds. Here you go.
Hello, everyone. It's a shame that I couldn't be there in person to give this lecture, but I'm glad to be able to send this video to you all. I am going to be talking about how I, as a deaf person, managed to break barriers, but also how I managed to build a full-fledged creative musical career. Now, this topic is very difficult to condense into one single point or one video, but I am going to be telling a few of the important points that have helped me and made it possible for me to progress in my career as an artist, but also as an entrepreneur. The first thing, back when I started, I thought the most important thing was for me to consider how I present myself, because in the world, I was a rarity as someone who started to make music as an artist. The first important thing that I wanted to focus on were the songs. In my songs, I decided to address some things that previously hadn't been discussed about a lot. Within the major population, things people didn't know about the deaf world. For example, deaf history, deaf experiences, I would, for example, tell about how in the Finnish society and in its change, how that affected deaf lives, but also how I, as a deaf person within the major population, how that felt. I believe that music has strength, and telling stories through music that people haven't heard before, that gets them interested in listening and learning new things and new stories. And I very boldly just put thoughts out there. Thoughts just as deaf people can enjoy music. And this got a lot of people confused. Wait, can deaf people actually enjoy music? But how, since they can't hear? And this train of thought was something that I wanted to change. That music, well, yes, hearing music is important as well, but that's not the only way to enjoy music. We as deaf people can enjoy music through our bodies. And this was something that a lot of people wanted to understand more about, how that worked. They got curious. They wanted to see. And that got people coming to our shows because they wanted to see a deaf artist on stage, how that looked like and how that sounded like. And within these songs, there was a message. And of course, the song itself had to be catchy and something that people could sing along with and enjoy. And also the stage performance, how we performed. I personally like my shows to be a little interactive so that people can enjoy themselves and try signing along as they sing along. The other thing that was important to me was a team. My team, back when I started, I would gather people who actually listened to what I wanted and what my goals were, and they wanted to be a part of my journey. Each of them could bring their own skills and knowledge, and I wouldn't tell them, yeah, you have to do it like this or do that. I would just say, I want to achieve this, and how can we do this in the best way possible with your skill set? And that way, it made it possible for me to get a really good team and a very good atmosphere within the team. And if we think about, for example, a mosaic, it's one big picture, but within that big picture, there are small pieces within which there are pictures, and putting them all together makes one big picture. And that was very important, that these people also spread good things around them, and they would say, oh, I've worked with this artist, and that got other people interested. And also, within the team, it was good because word starts to spread quite easily. We had deaf people and hearing people. For example, the deaf people would tell at associations or events, and hearing people would tell their friends at parties or at their work. And word got around. They would tell their coworkers, their family, and people got interested, really. And so this positive message started to spread, and that would also break prejudice. When someone else said, oh, that's really cool, and their friend would get interested and say, oh, I'll come see that. So we had a really good buzz of activity that was very important. The third important thing was myself, my attitude, and my will. Back when I started, I would go into the major population, and it wasn't easy. It took a lot of hard work. I myself ordered 10,000 records from Germany, from a manufacturer, and had them shipped to Finland, and I would spread the records. I had them in my backpack, and I would go into bars, buses, TV stations, radio stations, and would just spread my records. And people got to talking. And word got around. And also the media started contacting me And I instantly grabbed a hold of one of the medias and got an interview. And I would ask them, do you have a friend who does something somewhere else? And they would connect me with them. And that way I would able to get coverage in different places in different cities. And through that, I got TV interviews. Small things just started snowballing into bigger things. And through that, event organizers would see me, sign Mark, and invite me, for example, in summer festivals. And I myself also would contact artists and ask them, are you going there? Is this a good festival? Is this a good spot? How could I get a hold of someone? And I would just very bravely send emails and say, hey, I would be interested in being a part of the roster if there's room. So I took care of the fact that I would earn my own bread and butter. And also, an important thing is networking. In the beginning stages, I knew that I had to meet a lot of different people, as many people as possible. Communicate with them, tell them in person, grab an interpreter with me, and try to socialize. And people would notice that there's a positive attitude and atmosphere, and that got them interested. And that would also create new cooperation opportunities. One of them was the Eurovision Song Contest, through which I got a lot of possibilities and chances to perform at bigger stages in international events. And for example, the Finnish culture minister noticed my work and decided to give me an award. And in that situation and that event, I contacted a lot of people, and through them, I met the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I told him that I wanted to be involved in doing bigger things. And he invited me to different summits, for example, the New York UN Summit or the African AU Summit. And I got to do bigger and bigger things. My will and attitude, that makes up for a lot. And breaking barriers takes a lot of nerves and will of steel. There will be people who criticize and doubt your abilities, but you just have to keep your head strong. If you have followers, you get positive feedback, that means you are doing something right. There's something good here. There may be a few people who disagree, but they can, and they may criticize, and that's also good to take in and listen to. But it's also important not to be instantly immobilized by criticism, because people very easily only grab onto the negative things, and that's something I encourage you to avoid. I personally, in making music, I knew that just one thing may not carry me for long. It did, but I also always thought that it was good to have a plan B. Something that would be a plan for life. Another option, for example, acting, broadcasting, lecturing, whatever, as long as it looks like you. So it's always good to have something just in case something falls through, so you're not left stranded, so that there's somewhere else that you can veer your career. But it's also important that your plan looks like you. My experience as a full-fledged artist, I can say one of the most important things is your backup team, your fans, event organizers, and media coverage. These also support one another and have made my career possible. But first and foremost, it's your trust, your will, the will to try, the will to shine. And after that, just go for it. Everything is possible if you just put your mind to it. Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Please do.
It's just, I'm not sure if you get it, but this guy is big. I've been touring around with him from Sydney to Sao Paulo, and everywhere we came, people loved him. He's like the Bruno Mars and the Taylor Swift in one person for deaf community. But not only that, he's also pioneering. Like he raised the bar very high. Right? He's like the Jimi Hendrix on the electric guitar, or what Michael Jackson did for pop music. Like he set a new standard. I think he's massive. He's gonna tour for the last time this year. So if you get a chance, make sure you get to see him.
Yeah, I can witness he's right.
Here you go. I think we're gonna look out for the tickets somewhere in Europe to see him. He's not coming, I think, to Vilnius.
Sometimes he
April
does.
11, come to the
Sometimes.
Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we are. Well, okay. So we heard brilliant examples how to think about music events in order to make them more inclusive and accessible. We have heard a great example how to co-create and co-produce together with the deaf community. We have heard an example of how a deaf artist can forge a really strong and sturdy musical career through the strong determination and surrounding oneself with the supportive system. I guess, I see at the time we don't have that much time left, but I'm just wondering, talking about the accessibility and inclusion a bit more generally, at least in Lithuania, other cultural sectors are a bit more advanced when it comes to accessibility and inclusion of people with disabilities, or as you have mentioned, people with limitations. Museums, for instance, they organize accessible tours, and usually they focus, they open up to different people, different groups of people with disabilities. Theater, like performing arts, theater and contemporary dance specifically, they are also more open to start co-creating and co-creating together with different abled people. Also film festivals and their screenings, they tend to also try to be more accessible. And it got me wondering, at least, from my knowledge, it seems like music is lagging behind. And I'm wondering, is it the same case in the Netherlands? And also, is music only beginning address inclusion? And if so, why?
Yeah, I can confirm that. I think it's, in fact, universal. Mostly when you look at pop music. So I think pop music festivals, pop music venues are behind from that point when it comes to museums and maybe theaters. The next question is, why would that be? And what my explanation is for that is that it's like opera and museums and theaters often have been public funded much more than any pop music festival or venue has been. And when you're public funded, it says itself already, if it's public money that you're getting, I think you should take into consideration that you have to give back to a bigger audience than you originally did. But when pop music is being run by volunteers or by people who get only a little bit of funding, put their own money into it, usually the transition to become more inclusive and accessible is more difficult, takes more time.
I agree with Ronald. I want to a little bit distinguish cultural sector from music industry. So if we are talking about pop music, it usually we are talking about the music industry, and industry has its own logic. The logic is usually based on business cases, and cultural industries working in on a different modes, I would say, and have different logic. So it's kind of the same. My answer is kind of the same as Ronald's because probably of the funding system, and of course the ability and devotion to have more time for processes, not going towards the result really, really fast. And I'm really happy about Lithuanian cultural field because it seems like it's really strong, and it looks for me stronger than in other countries, because probably our generation or generation before, we literally killed old giants in the sector. My heart says that. But in music industry, it's a bit different, and there are much more old giants there, as I see it metaphorically. But Lithuanian cultural system, cultural sector is quite strong, as I see it. We will see how much it will be destroyed by our government now. So it seems like it's a really danger for this. Yeah, and another thing is about education. It's also difficult because my experience is with deaf community that there are not so many people who are professionals, and you cannot balance and make it professional without professionals. So, yeah.
Again, I agree with you as well. It's education plays a big role, but I'd like to add that next to funding, I think legislation, like the laws, the obligations, that would, as far as I'm concerned, play the biggest role. I think there is really a role for government or city councils or municipalities to play a role when it comes to making arts inclusive, basically entire life to make it inclusive. But while living in an economic system, in a capitalist system, it will be very hard to hope that people will become inclusive. I think there is a role for government to build inclusion in this.
And and I agree with you also. So I want to add that actually, in terms of deaf community, when we're talking about disabilities, it's really common to see deaf community as disabled people who need adaptations. And it's difficult really to change the perspective that deaf community is actually, first of all, cultural community, and the accessibility is going not beyond like deficit of sound. First of all, you have, as Ronald showed his presentation, sense of belonging, and this is like a huge hill you need to step over, and it's really difficult to tell. For example, when I say people that I'm doing musical project with deaf people, they're just sometimes raising the eyebrow and change the topic because they looked at me like I'm a crazy guy, or imagining that it's just non-professional or really kindergarten's level cultural event. So it's difficult to change and to convince people that this guy, Marko, is one of the most talented and brilliant artists. Usually people say, yeah, I heard, yeah. But when they see it, so people don't want to believe that it's worthy to look at this on a professional level. So even in the cultural sector, in my environment, people like saying that, oh, I haven't been to your performance because it's for deaf community. No, I said I'm creating for hearing community to know about deaf people, but it's like, yeah, it's a huge, it's a notion, or how to say, it's a believing deep inside that it's
a complex issue, isn't it? Like, I feel like, so many good points touched upon, and unfortunately we don't have any time left, unless, I mean, if any has a very short, super short question from the audience, raise your hand now. And if not, then I will just summarize several points that you said. So I feel like, it's a multi-complex, it's like a factor issue we have right now, because I feel like, much initiative should come from the governments, and I feel like, as you said, yeah, perhaps music sector industry is mostly private funding or profit-driven sector, and still I think maybe it's not that, maybe it has not tapped into the public funding source. But even the public funding, I think, calls, at least in Lithuania, they do not necessarily require all funded projects to be accessible or to maintain, include this aspect in the project design. And I think that is the issue we can maybe, address and tell to the people at the Lithuanian Council for Culture or Vilnius municipality or other municipalities that it is an important issue to take into account. And I would like maybe conclude the session with Dominykas' point about that accessibility. When you take the measures on accessibility, honestly, it becomes accessible not only to that specific group of people with limitations or impairments, but honestly, the whole experience becomes so inclusive and so interesting, and yes, different, but nonetheless really valuable for people, for normal-bodied or neurotypical people as well. And it's so enriching, and it's worth taking time, resources, and money into creating even just better experiences of culture to everybody. So thank you so much. I feel like we could just continue talking about this issue. I mean, many aspects were not touched, but please be sure to find Dominykas at the booth in the music hall. And actually, the last very point, Ronald Lichtenberg is gonna guide a workshop, a practical workshop, light but focused and hands-on workshop on Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon in grassroots music venue Estrada. You can find more information and registration form on MURMURS.lt website. So please, if you want to go deeper into this issue, please register for the workshop, and let's meet again to talk about this issue even more on Saturday.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Light and fun.
Yeah.
And we are having a concert with deaf community next Saturday, Tamsta Club. Everyone is welcome to join.
Thanks so much
for coming.
Thank you, Justina,
for
for
hosting.
interpreting.
Thank you.